a battle over ballots.
Pennsylvania and Georgia have moved towards Joe Biden, but both races remain razor thin as vote counting continues.
President Trump's legal fight to reverse the outcome of the election.
I feel really confident that my vote is going to be counted.
It's now the typical election night. Polls have closed and the ballots are being counted. You're either sound asleep or glued to a screen, anxiously waiting to see the results. Regardless, the night comes to an end with no clear winner. Why does it take so long to see election results time and time again? And is there a way to fix it? Locking in election results takes time, and for several reasons. The projected results reported live on election night are only part of the equation. Those numbers mostly come from in-person votes, either from early voting or on election day. It doesn't yet account for all the mail-in ballots. Processing mail-in ballots takes time, delaying the official announcing of winners. We've seen this before. In 2020, mail-in ballots were at an all-time high. As results were rolling in on election day, it initially seemed like Donald Trump was in the lead. Then, once the mail-in ballots were tabulated, Biden won. This led to a slew of misinformation, with some voters erroneously calling the election a fraud. But there is no deadline to count votes by the end of election day, and each state operates a little different. U.S. elections are not run on a federal level. States oversee, while local county or township officials run the process. The U.S. has over 10,000 jurisdictions tasked with overseeing the voting process, all with their own ways of doing so. Florida, Georgia, Iowa, and Ohio are able to start validating mail ballots ahead of Election Day. In contrast, battleground states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are not allowed to process until Election Day. In 2020, more than 2.6 million mail-in ballots were received in Pennsylvania and around 2 million in Wisconsin. That's a lot of mail to open and tabulate. The U.S. Supreme Court also ruled in 2020 that Pennsylvania election officials could count absentee ballots as late as the Friday after Election Day, as long as they were postmarked by November 3rd. It's a one-time exception, as civilian absentee ballots must be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day, no exceptions. That's why there was whiplash in the 2020 election. A record number of mail-in ballots changed the tide from initially favoring Donald Trump to Joe Biden as the subsequent winner. Also, 19 states allow a grace period to receive mail-in ballots, only if the ballots were sent through the mail by Election Day. This includes California, which allows ballots to be received 7 days later. The delay in election results due to counting mail-in ballots only fueled a fire of misguided distrust with our election process, especially in states like Pennsylvania, where election workers were threatened with violence. Another factor that could slow down processing ballots is on the ballot itself. Republican Senator J.D. Vance, Trump's 2024 vice presidential pick, previously lauded the elections in France, claiming their polls had closed hours ago and they already knew the winners. But there was only one contest on the ballot, which obviously made it easy to tabulate. In the United States, the ballots typically include dozens of contested offices. The bottom line is that counting ballots should not be rushed for the sake of accuracy, but there is still some room for improving efficiency. According to the Bipartisan Policy Center, a think tank for bipartisan solutions, pre-processing ballots can ease the workload of election workers on and after Election Day. Pre-processing makes mail ballots ready to be scanned into the tabulated machines before Election Day. It differs from state to state. The Bipartisan Policy Center recommends providing at least 7 days before Election Day for pre-processing, permitting election officials to scan ballots into tabulators before Election Day, and giving voters sufficient time to correct issues with their ballot. As you're waiting for results of the next election, remember to be patient. Mail-in ballots are not going anywhere. Until all votes are counted, the projections made by analysts are still just that, projections.
Our democracy is based on the integrity of our elections, and when we lose confidence in that result, our country will have fallen.